I'm already an older guy. I'm in 770 or whatever time. I go to Yale. Was is his bonus? And then years later, I used to tell my mashal, I give him a marshal. I said, let's say this marshal, what do you think? Was darf das da? Like, what do you need that? I said, did you watch TV? You watch movies? I go, we got different Nefesh Habehamis. Your Nefesh Habehamis from a stuff. I got to talk to a different guy.
Welcome to Homesick for Lubavitch, a podcast where we explore Lubavitch identity in the year 2025. My name is Benzi Aftzin, and I will be your host. Let's begin.
Someone was asking me about why the Alter Rebbe is so against Chacham Chitzenius. Like, he speaks about it like it's like evil, and like what's the bad? What's so bad if a person reads, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates? Okay. So I said, the way I understood from Alter Rebbe and Tanya is that, let's say, for example, let's say we're talking about somebody who has a tremendously talented way with material. It's very fine taste.
Right.
So he touches on the material. He knows what it's made from. He knows how if it's tightly done, if it's done well, it's not done well. He's very sensitive to all the nuance and uniqueness of that. And then all of a sudden he goes, for whatever reason, he needs to be in a mine for like a year or 2 years. And he comes out. Now he tries to touch this stuff.
His hands are okay. Yeah.
He feels something, but all the finer things he can't get to anymore. He dulled those senses. The Alter Rebbe is like, that's what he's worried about. He says the Nefesh Kiss resides in the brain. Yeah, it's not bad, but what it does is it dulls you. It dulls you from the spirituality, and if you delve too much into it, you're just not going to pick up spiritual nuances. The uniqueness of learning and connecting spiritually will be dulled down by your involvement in a different logic. It just dulls. It's a low. Something wrong with mining either.
Right.
It's just that if you're going to be a guy who's going to be touching silks, don't go in the mine. If you're going to be somebody who's going to be dealing with Chochmah Elokis, with godliness, which is definitely not part of this world, then the more you solidify this world as more real, you're just not capable of to be able to do that mental leap, to know how to appreciate it. So you have to.
Fair enough. That's a good way to start. Alrighty, I am here in Bay Harbor.
Bay Harbor.
Bay Harbor, right over the harbor from Bal Harbor, Surfside, with Rebbe Preger. I never know if I should say rabbi. Then people get upset. Not a rabbi.
Just mayor.
Mayor. Rebbe Preger. Or just mayor. Thank you very much for doing this. And a few people have asked me to have you on. And it's very nice to meet you for the first time. And I think we can begin with a little bit of background of who's Mayor Preger. Who's Mayor Preger? Okay, that's a little bit too open-ended, but you grew up in Crown Heights. When give me set a little bit of the picture, not about yourself so much, but about what Crown Heights was like growing up.
Well, Crown Heights, I was born in 1964, so Crown Heights was a lot different. There was already a lot of the mass exodus already left. And there was only a skeleton of Lubavitchers there, so to speak. And there was a lot of non-Lubavitchers, but all with eyeing to move to Borough Park. To Flatbush, Borough Park, whatever, somewhere. There were other.
So basically in the heat of white flight.
Yeah, I remember on my block there was at least 3-4 major Rebbes. The Sadiger's son, the one who passed away, he just passed away, but he became the Mamal Malcolm Sadiger, was next door to us. I forgot who was on the corner. A lot of big, major players. There's a lot of big Rebbes there.
So Crown Heights was Borough Park before there was Borough Park? Is that what it was?
I'm not as familiar with Crown Heights how it was then, so I'm not going to...
Okay.
I remember that from the Lubavitcher point of view, we went to Lubavitch. I went to Lubavitch Yeshiva. Most of my class, I don't
Was
think
that
most
Ocean
of,
Parkway?
Yeah, most of the class. I mean, it was half Lubavitchers,
Right.
half not. More
Right.
until the Iranians came in, and then it was almost all Iranian school for a
Right.
while. But
Who did you gravitate to? If I ask you, like, who are the figures in Crown Heights that jump out to you? Were there people that stuck out? Was everybody?
So my father was from, the more affluent members of the community. He was a big bald stalker.
He was a Lubavitcher?
Yeah, he came from Brisk. My Zayde was a sheikhet of Brisk.
Okay, so they're a Litvish family.
No, there were Chassidim, but not Chabad. That there were many Chassidim in Brisk.
Okay.
Because Brisk was very friendly to Chassidim. And my mishpacha, the Zayde, were all the Shachtim of Brisk for many, many years back. With Haskomas from the Chaim Brisk and Beis Halevi. And actually, if you read the Briskerov, the Sefer that came out, 3 sets, you see Moshe Preger, which is my Zayde. He mentions him quite a bit because he helped him pack. All his terrace, the biscuit terrace was packed by my Zayde.
What, before the war?
Yeah, he got arrested on his bringing the Briskerov stuff to the boat. You read in the book.
How did you say he got out before the war?
No.
Your Zayde was a survivor?
No, my Zayde died there. So the Briskerov,
okay.
so somehow...
How did your father get out?
My father got out because I'm not exactly sure. There was how my father ended up in Lubavitch Yeshiva in Varsha and then in Brisk in Atfotsk, and then he went to Shanghai.
Oh, so your father was one of those?
Yeah.
What do they call them? The B-59 or something? That's what Seligson told me. Yeah.
So something happened, and based on that, I've understood that the Briskerov recommended to my Zayde to send them to Lubavitch.
Before the war.
Before the war. So my father is the only one, him and his brother survived. Everybody else didn't survive.
His brother was also in Atvatsk?
No, his brother was the troublemaker that he was supposed to separate from. That's what they say. He was a good guy, but he was a bit more on the wild side. So at that time, that's what I heard from some people in Brisk are like people in Neville, and their tradition is
oh yeah
yeah, very much
Gezher Brisk.
They're so everybody knows each other. There's a guy I know, he knows my family better than I'll ever know.
Do they fast and Tainus Esther or not?
That's my father grew up. Yeah, he grew up in Brisk, and then at 13 years old, he went to Lubavitch Yeshiva, and once you're in, you're in.
So your father was a Lubavitcher guy. And he was a Lubavitcher chassid.
Yeah.
And he was a businessman.
He was a businessman, so I gravitated mostly to the business people, and there wasn't a big crowd.
Was there 4 people in Crown Heights?
I remember Shmuel Isaac made money later on, but there was
3 people.
There were people. There were other names, people that were there that left. It's a lot of different stories. But Crown Heights was small, yeah. 770. I don't remember upstairs, but I remember downstairs before the expansion. I remember running through it, destroying the place. We were very wild kids.
Your father would daven every Shabbos in 770?
Yeah.
So like all the way, not...
Yeah.
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 And
he didn't have, in the beginning he didn't have a beard, and in the last 2 years he did have a beard. So a story with the Rebbe, something got involved. But... so he started having, but most people in Crown Heights didn't have beards, and it was much different.
Most people did not have.
A lot of people didn't. I can't say most. But
Even the Lubavitcher Chassidim themselves.
There were a lot of people. Yeah. So,
yeah.
A lot of people became Lubavitchers.
Also, yeah.
Lubavitch is always an organization that's making itself.
Right.
So we picked up a lot of people.
Yeah, we're always on the way to somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's right. But were there any chassidim that stuck out to you? If any chassidim that stick out that you were mentioning earlier that you used to learn chassidus with Avram Mayar?
That happened much years. That's years
later.
Okay,
I'm asking. Is there like is it, or was it too much going on that nobody sticks out individually? Like describe Crown Heights to me. You started. I was wild and I was questioning. So I never gravitated to the
normal people that you should have gravitated to at the Chassidim. It was not my style. I didn't want to hear about it. It wasn't. So I never really, until years later, when I was maybe 16, about 17, I discovered Chassidus.
Really?
Fell in love. So until then, I wasn't interested. I wasn't gravitating. I wasn't looking.
You weren't interested in Lubavitch? You weren't interested in Yiddishkeit?
I was interested in Yiddishkeit. I was enamored. Everybody was enamored by the Rebbe.
You were?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had to.
What were you enamored by?
Just, you cannot...
but describe to me.
You remind me, I was just talking to somebody who went out with somebody. He should be getting married. You should have been married already. I say, why didn't it work out? He goes, I can tell you many reasons why, but none of the reasons are the reason why I'm not going out with her. He just doesn't like her. Right. There's good reasons. Why they're really connecting to somebody on a real level, it's not about one thing. What did Rebbe do to me? I don't remember Yechidus. I went to Yechidus. I don't remember Yechidus that much. But it's just the way Rebbe walked, the way he looked, the way he spoke.
I'll tell you why I'm skeptical of that. Not that I don't believe you. I'll tell you why I made the face. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't notice the face.
I thought you saw me question it, right? Is because when if you meet someone, whether it's for business or to get married, and you feel something either for or against, that's a very personal, individual kind of thing that you're feeling. And so, yes, that gut instinct that can't be explained with a specific reason is believable to me. When everyone in a community feels something about someone and they can't articulate it, is it that everyone on an instinctive level feels the same thing? Or is it that we're not willing to figure out what it is? You see what I'm asking?
Very, very interesting, yes. When we grew up, most of the teachers some of them were being Lubavitch.
Yes.
So no one sat with us and told us this stuff, what's going on now in yeshiva, nothing like that happened. Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing like that happened.
It wasn't like Fabringen, you have to love the Rebbe, this, that, the other.
Let's put it this way. Not everybody came to Fabringen.
Yes.
And nobody sat down and said, the Rebbe's the most important thing. Didn't happen. With JJ, we had maybe, I don't remember. I remember, no, nothing. Nothing like that. Nobody ever indoctrinated, told us, and this is it, now is the birthday, and this is their Rebbe since this, and then it came to America. I had no idea what day came to America. No idea, birthday. Okay, we didn't do that. We just was in, he was just, took us. I'm telling you, there's a big difference. In Chassidus, it explains about certain times. It depends on what you're connecting to. Are you connecting to a koyach or to etzem? There's certain people that just carry an energy that's so pure that it gets to you. You don't know why. I wasn't even into it, and you got to. I have friends like that. Friends who weren't even religious. When it came to their Rebbe, let me tell you, in the years when
but it's a very interesting subject.
Ask people when you have a chance about what it looked like when the Rebbe gave the bracha to Bochum.
I'm asking you.
I'm just telling you, but I'm going to say to me, I'm going to say mine, but you'll see. The people that showed up then never showed up before.
Oh, you had one time of year Jews and Karnites too.
Sure, yeah. You think it was Nila? It was called Nidre? No. For Lubavitcher, the bracha for Bochum, you fought. You had guys that were doing whatever they did.
Where come from?
Not at all.
Not at all from.
Coming, you gotta get. The Rebbe was giving a bracha to Bochum, and they fought their way in. There was a connection then that was just crazy. The Rebbe didn't look at you. You didn't look at that. You couldn't see anything. That was very serious, but it was like whoa. I'm getting goosebumps when I remember hearing the Rebbe saying Yuvla Hashem. I don't know. Can't explain it. I can't. Most of my relationship now, I can explain the Rebbe's relationship better because I've been studying it and learning sichos and been so crazy about it. And I tried so many other chochmes, not talking about chitzenis, other Yiddish chochmes. So now I developed also an intellectual appreciation, serious one. But at the time, it was very weird, very special, very special. There were times that Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, there's differences on him, just the way looking at him, he got you.
Spring is here, which means that in 2 months, many communities will be looking for a way to mark Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe's yahrzeit. If you're looking for an event that is memorable, meaningful, and affordable, let me recommend This World is a Garden, a film and live concert production created by us here at Yuvla Media, inspired by Bosi Lgani, the first mimer, the Rebbe said. If you're a regular here at HFL, you know that Bosi Lgani is something that we think about and talk about a lot. And in this production, we use the power of cinematic filmmaking and a live concert by a string quartet to bring the beauty of Bosi Lgani to your community and your audience in a way that they've never seen, heard, or experienced it before. The production has already been hosted by Chabad houses around the country and has drawn wonderful reviews. Our package comes with everything that you need to put in the production: the film's original arrangements for string quartet, publicity materials, everything besides the string quartet, which you recommend that you hire locally to save on travel costs. To find out more about this production, please visit thisworldisagarden.com. Again, thisworldisagarden.com. And now, back to the show. So how do you explain that? Is there a way to explain it? Is there a point to explain it? Why Bachrim who are struggling with their Yiddishkeit feel this need to come to get a bracha? Was it because they, like the businessman who says it's worth the off chance that it helps? No, that's not what a Bacher is thinking about.
No, they didn't.
I'm saying that's what a cynical businessman is thinking about at 40 years old. What's pulling the Bacher in for that? Like, what is it? Because you see it a lot today. I don't know if it's the same exact thing.
Well,
you're
let me ask you a
describing.
question. Oh, I'm sorry. You were going to say something about.
No, but there are things like today. You see also a lot of guys are like they have problems with God, but not with the Rebbe. Never. It's always. Like it's never with the Rebbe. It's always if there's a problem, it's with God. Where does that come from, in your mind? So that's what you're touching on, basically.
I like to mention one thing that even though it happened years later, but I guess the guts of it you can see. I remember once, I don't remember which Farbrengen it was, and it maybe took 3 minutes for the Rebbe to say this, but it seemed like an hour. It was like shocking. The Rebbe then referred to that there were tzaddikim. This was in the later years, the later mems. I think so. Yeah, later mems, for sure. Maybe, yeah. So he said there were tzaddikim that took an account of what's going to be after they pass away, and they try to make provisions to protect them, to somehow still be advocates for Jews. The Rebbe famously spoke about it in Tafshin Yud Aleph about the Levitz Baditcheva that he made up that he's not going to Gan Eden as a protest until he gets in. And something happened, and I think the story goes Kedusha, but the Rebbe didn't say what happened. Whatever it is, they got him. That's they got him. And the Rebbe said then that the Frierdiker Rebbe, it's not Shayach. Why? Because they're into Guluyim, like you're saying, things, reasons, edge, wise. And if you're just into it with no eyes and whys and no boundaries, there's nothing. That's who you are, and that's he said who the Frierdiker Rebbe is, and therefore it won't happen to him. That's what the Rebbe said. By this Farbrengen, the Rebbe said there were tzaddikim that made up, but it looks like they got everybody. Now, obviously, he didn't say the Frierdiker Rebbe, but the way I saw it, the way my place was right across there, is that he meant everybody. Like somehow they got him. So there was, what's the Eitzah? Like, what is the Eitzah? So there was the Eitzah that he found was that if you make a neder das rabbim, if you make a neder for whatever it is, you can go to Chochem, and the guy can somehow, if he's smart enough, he can say, okay, but you didn't know that if this and this. And you have to be all of conscious mind to know what you're promising. Otherwise, it's not a real promise.
Like your Mekara, yeah.
Yeah, so he can take it away. But there's always a way out of a neder. Right. But if you make a neder das rabbim, in other words, your opinion doesn't matter. Right. You give it over to everybody else. It never can take you out of that because you're not a guy you gave away that right.
Right.
And you knew there that the Rebbe was doing this neder das rabbim, that he's not going to forget this reality, so to speak. He didn't have to. When
was this? This was in the later years.
Yeah.
A few years before he passed away.
Yeah. And who does that? Who sits there and makes up that he's not going to forget this reality, because what happens is once you go to, like, we go to Chassidus, Kabbalah, and anything, once you see God's perspective, you're like, okay, I see what you're saying. You know, you have two fights, and all of a sudden you're committed on one side, and all of a sudden you hear the other side, you're like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. Now that I know that, like, I hear you. Maybe you're not, you know, you're not so guilty. You don't want to lose that. You don't want to lose any of that edge for anybody on this side. It cannot be forgotten. That's how he was. That's how he was from the beginning. It was always about the people. It was never about himself. Where did it ever go? Where did he live?
So that's
he lived. You just looked at his physical life. You looked at him. You saw it was all about somebody else.
So that's what a bunch of wild boys, teenage boys. That's what they're connecting to. They're just so impressed by selflessness.
No. It was not conscious. I'm making it about. I'm just giving context.
Right.
It's even if someone told me something against that, I would still feel that, like, because there was a magic, there's something special. The same reason right now we're seeing hostages coming out of Gaza believing in God. It makes no sense. They were in the most godless. Everything logically says that God put down his arms and let things happen at that time, on October 7th.
Right.
It is. And everything, God, from a logical point of view, God did everything possible to make sure that you never come back to shul.
Right.
And here these, one after the other, found God. It's crazy. This girl became Shabbos, this one, we had the Shabbos, two survivors that came here. I never heard a mashpia speak like this, like these people. They're like, like something changed. There's certain things that are emes, that are much, much bigger than the brain and bigger than the heart. But the brain can have recognition that it's there. The heart can have recognition that it's there. But what exactly it is, it's inexplicable. It's inexplicable. It's like these deeper relationships. Just in the terms of Chassidus, Seichel Midas are creations. Right. And there's a reality. There's things, that it has its limitations. Kol ma sheyesh lo tchilu yesh lo seif. Whatever has a beginning has an end. These relationships, these things of recognition of real emes, there's no place for logic to it. How is it that I'm seeing today more? In my life, I never saw so many chassidim like it is today. People really into it. Never. This is unbelievable. The kids, my nephews, kids, my own kids, some of my kids. I'm like, where did it come from?
If I can push back though at that, you're seeing also a lot more kids who are not interested.
Oh, that happened. More than you knew in the old days.
No, but the numbers are growing.
No.
They're not?
Not percentage-wise, not even close to what it was.
Really?
Yeah. I'm thinking about my class. I'm thinking about my first grade and where most of them, or where a lot of them are in second grade.
Well, you said a lot of them to begin with weren't Lubavitchers.
No, I'm talking people that were Lubavitchers.
A lot of them today are not religious.
Whatever. With the I don't.
So, okay.
Believe,
well,
I don't believe that I think the percentages are much greater.
I don't need to argue that point. So, what about them? Why didn't they connect to this that you're describing?
God has a purpose in this world. Everybody has a place that needs to be.
Right, so there are limitations. There are limitations.
It's part of what is supposed to happen. It's always like that.
Right. You see, you're not suggesting that because Rebbe was here, everyone just got swept into it.
No.
Okay.
No. And he's not, and people turning off are not there because because Gimel Tammuz happened either.
Okay. Yes.
It's an independent thing of whatever needs to happen. When the Rebbe is here, the Rebbe was here, and the Rebbe is not here, so-called, involved with us.
No, it's a way of life.
It's a way of life.
It's a way of life.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, that's something that I know as I the little bit that I read about history, and you don't have to go very far. Like Lubavitchers were dealing with this 100 years ago, 150 years ago in Russia. It's just part of life. Like this idea that you're gonna, it used to be that you would have 10 kids and you were lucky if 4 of them survived, physically, right? And then from the ones that survived physically, you were lucky if a few of them survived spiritually.
Right.
This idea that we have that, thank God, physically things have gotten a lot better, right? But like all your children are one after another going to follow this one path that you set out for them, when there are infinite paths available to them in the world, and you're astonished when they don't choose. Like, the odds are against you, immensely against you, right? What do they say about like the counterterrorism in the country? That like the terrorists have to get it right once to win, and we have to get it wrong once to win. Like, it's a terrible fight. It's the same thing when you're raising a kid to be from, right, or to be a yid, to be a chassid, right? Like, one person has to get to them, and that's over. And you slip up once, and you can lose them, right? And I don't know, people have this thing in their mind, like. So that's why I don't know, because when I was growing up, I remember, and this is after you, obviously, I remember when people started talking these kind of expressions like "ein bayis asher ein shomeis." It became like, at first it was hush hush, like this family has a kid who fell off the path. This family, it was like a whole like scandal, and then it became "ein bayis asher ein shomeis." Every family's like this. You're saying it was always like that?
It's much, and it's totally exaggerated. But the number, I mean, they're bigger. Krenites is huge.
Right, in absolute numbers.
Lubavitch is great, is huge.
Yes.
The absolute number, but percentages, no way. It's no way. We're way better off than ever, I believe. Mm-hmm. And also the quality of good. When you look at like a good bacher, so to speak. When I watch a good, I've never seen anything. It's amazing. Solid. This is real. It's more because it's more homegrown. It's more dasta. Everything that Chassidus says that we have to end up doing, that's what's happening. First of all, even about tshuva, if you think about it, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think so. From Bayis Rishon, most Jews were not religious. Once the Tzedukim, the Basusim, and all those.
Right. Yeah, people should read a little bit of Ezra also.
Yeah. Most Jews were not on the reservation. They all left. Most of whatever the reason is.
And they left hard.
Hard.
Ezra is 70 years after the Churban Bayis. He comes back. Nobody's keeping Shabbos. They're all intermarried.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like literally.
So now think about it. Now, then we're talking about thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And then all the years and all the Lubavitcher families. There were 600,000 Lubavitchers in times of Tzemach Tzedek.
Right, it's Hayam Yem, right?
Yeah.
Where did they go?
Where'd they go?
The Kantanistim.
They became everything. Whatever. The point
is, it's the KGB. We blame it on the KGB.
It's not true. Whatever the reason is, most never survived.
Right.
And also, that's not my point. My point is, no Baal Tshuvas ever. There's never a Baal Tshuva movement. You never hear about somebody, he was not from where he came from. He was a guy, he became a ger. You hear stories again, but came from, it doesn't exist. All of a sudden, the last X amount of years, you literally have people coming back. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Throughout Jewish history, anybody that went to university, higher education learning, lost their religion. It was just a given. And this is the first time, not only that, more Jews are being introduced to Judaism and turning. The only experienced pupil says of Judaism is in university.
I see what you're saying. You're saying it used to be that the future was inherently pessimistic. If you start with 100 today, in 50 years it's going to be down to 20 or 50, whatever. The question is only how much are you going to lose, or how little you're going to lose, but you're going to lose. And now you're saying it's also going the opposite direction. There could be optimism where the future could be better. Is that what you're saying?
100%.
Why do you think that is?
Because there's a time when your parents are holding the bicycle and sometimes they wobble you, and while you're wobbling, you're nervous. Every time your father moves with the bike, you get even more nervous until all of a sudden he finally lets go of the handrails. And you start pedaling, and then you realize what happens when you go to the side. You move a little bit here, you move a little bit there, and you get comfortable with the risk, and you get comfortable about the reward, and you get comfortable with the experience, and then you start loving it.
Right.
And that's what happened. That's what the Rebbe wanted from us, and that's what Yiddishkeit. That's what they were trying. He wanted us to have. It should be a guy goes to the whole. A guy goes into Gaza, comes back, a frum yid. Where is that? The Yidden in the Mitzrayim, they were off lunch. It was off 2 hours. They're already going back to Mitzrayim with the most amazing miracles.
Right.
And the Beis HaMikdash with crazy miracles and Nevi'im. I was just listening to a Sikha there, Rebbe's Farbrengen from Yud Lamed Beis. He was talking about the Nevi'im. He was talking about how many Nevi'im there were. it's mind-boggling how many Nevi'im there were. And even though we only quote the ones that
the Gemara says, yeah.
Thousands. The numbers were staggering with Nevi'im. And most people were because it's inspiration from above. It's not real. I remember once a story. I was once talking to Yale, and he liked to inspire, to get me on Chassid, whatever. So I was going he told me once a mimer, a concept in Chassidus, and he was so excited about it. And when he finished it, he goes, "Das is Chassidus." And my reaction to him was like, I don't know if that's Chassidus, that's Seichel. Like, that was just smart. It wasn't, you're saying it's per se Chassidus. I just think that it was just smart. And I remember him like loving that. He's like, oh, like, that's what he really wanted to hear. He wanted to hear that at the end, because that's what Chassidus is at the end of it.
It's clipped. Like, it's not.
Yeah. The realities are not, they're working together in unison.
It's too late. You've seen something that you can't unsee at this point. It's too real. It's not like, it's not okay. It's not imposed onto your.
You're taking it from. I hear you.
That's not what you mean.
I meant to say that it was that. Usually, another line from Yale. He tells me, "Miluftos Chabad, or bebemistos is Emunah." You know, it's really Emunah. You know, you say it's Chabad, but his point was, or why it's always Chabad, is that because we need to ground it into Seichel. It's our job. They're giving us enough framework to make it logical. So when it comes logical, then you're like, oh, that's Chassidus.
How did this relationship with Rebbe Yale, was it something common?
No, it wasn't common.
They took interest in, how did it start?
No, not at all. How did it start with me? Yeah. I was not a Bachim. He gave Shirim for 770, and he was a superstar. Yale was always a superstar.
Yeah.
And I was just a Shmagegi Bacher in Morristown.
Right.
And I remember learning a certain mimer, and there was something that the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote over there that just didn't make sense to me. So I remember going to Melech, made him crazy. One day, another day, fighting. He didn't. It wasn't happening. He didn't know how to back that one. And it was a good subject. It's a very interesting subject.
Which one do you remember?
Yeah, it was a Hemshech Tzadik Dalet. The
Tzadik Dalet, Tzadik Hey.
With the Hemshech, that they told the Frierdiker Rebbe to stop because it was too hard.
Yeah.
So over there, at one point, he says that the difference between Gashmis and Ruchnis is that in Gashmis, Mitzius bottle, Kiyumid bottle. You take away its Mitzius, there's nothing left. It's Kiyumid to everything. It's gone. It's like it never been here. But in Ruchnis, Mitzius bottle, Kiyumid Nisher. It's Kiyum. Kiyum. How's that possible? What's the difference? One's physical and spiritual. It should be the same thing. So whatever, it couldn't go. So someone told me that Yale once went to the Rebbe on this question. So I'm like, you know what? I'll go Shabbos to 770. I'll go to Yale. Speak to him. So I was a young boy. I came over to him. And I remember he goes, "Was ist Luchdies?" And I was an arrogant kid. So usually when someone asks me something, either I tell them what I know or I make something up, but I don't just walk away empty-handed. But something told me, just shut up. Just shut up now. Because was ist Luchnis? So I was quiet. So he told me to learn the Sicha, Chelok Hey, about the 4 Kalis, and come back to him. I don't remember how he answered this question, but at that time, I felt comfortable to ask him, and he gave me enough credibility. He would listen to me. He would talk to me. That was amazing. Like, he would talk, your grandfather, old and Mendel Futterfass, and me, like nothing to do with each other. It's like,
all right.
He would talk, if he's talking about linear Chassidus, he's talking the same thing. He would be talking to each one the same word. It's about the subject. And he wouldn't care. He had no preconception. He didn't care, young, old, whatever. If you're getting it, if it's okay, then you got it. And so I used to speak to him. Whatever. Even when I had other challenges spiritually also, everybody has their ups and downs. I had my ups and downs. I always had an open door with him. I remember once coming to him, and I was talking to him, and I must have had like maybe white pants or a white jacket. I don't know, something odd. And then he felt bad about it. He was like, oh, whatever. Like he never went there. It was like he was shocked that he went there. But it was always like talking about the subject.
So he wasn't so out of it, turns out. He knew what clothes were weird.
He was pretty out of it. Yeah, he was pretty out. He wasn't stupid. But he wasn't into it. So people held him like he was, absent-minded. It's not absent-minded. He was focused. He was focused in what he's focused in. He's clear. He was a thinker, and he thought of what he thought. And the nuanced things is like. I remember once hearing about someone talking about entrepreneurs. He was talking about he met some genius, and the guy had 2 different color socks. So he asked him about it. So he goes, I didn't notice. He goes, in socks, the importance is the thickness. What's the color? How does color make a difference? Right. It's like, it's odd. You have to have the same thickness to go in the same shoe, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah. The nuance is just not into it.
And you were attracted to that?
I was attracted to it because I'd never met, he was for real. He was probably one of the only real guys I met. It was Habehamis.
See, what he was into, he was into.
Yeah. Yeah, I always bothered me about meeting people, and they're not, the thickness and the color doesn't match.
Whole muscle here.
And he was very real, very, very real, very into the Rebbe in a very real way, very mystic. And also he was very, very smart. And he knew how to...
I heard, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I heard there was a story that you had with him. I heard you had a conversation with him on the night of Gimel Tammuz.
What?
I heard you spoke to him the night of Gimel Tammuz.
No, I didn't. When he passed away.
When who passed away?
When Yale passed away. So I went to Menachem Avol. I knew her too. She's a very interesting woman. And so I was sitting with her. So she said, I'll share with you, I'll tell you what happened let me tell you what happened when Yale found out about Gimel Tammuz. Like, what was, I don't know what compelled her to tell me that. It's not like we were discussing it. We were just discussing how much of a mensch she was. Because she knew I appreciated it. Like, she knew how everybody thinks of him as a genius, but he was posh and a nice guy. He was posh and a mensch. He was nice. He was posh. He was a really good guy. And she knew that I knew that, and she knew that Yale liked me and whatever. So then she tells me, it's an interesting story. She says that what happened was they had a heart failure that night. It was during Shabbos once. It was heart stopped for a while, and then they got it back on, and then Motzei Shabbos again it happened. And so she told me she was on the phone, I think with Mrs. Sternberg, if I'm not mistaken, that she told me, who was in the hospital, who had access to the phone in the hospital. They knew what's going on. So she was on the phone with her, and she was always in the kitchen. You don't know where he used to live on Crown Street, so she was in the
upstairs?
Kitchen. Yeah, so
I was there once.
Okay, so she always sat by the table by the kitchen, and he always sat by the table in the dining room.
Right.
So he would come in every minute or two, and I said, "No, it's nice. Like, what's going on?" And she said, "No, nice, no news." And he'd come back every like a minute, like he's panicking and whatever. And he news. And then finally, what happened, she says that he asked her, "It's very nice," and she said, "I didn't answer him." So she said he leaned, like he fell, so to speak, like he leaned on the door post, like he was just like tuned out, which he does. So she goes, "Yale, was wird sein?" So he doesn't answer. He answers once, twice. She goes, "Yale, was wird sein?" And she's a tough woman. She goes, "Yale, was wird sein?" She says, Yale says, "Was wird sein, weiß ich nicht, aber es wird nehmen eine Sache länger." Well, what's going to happen, I don't know, but it's going to take a lot longer. And it's interesting, because he made that switch at that point. There's a big difference when there's cherv mutal tzavari, when even the execution, you have to have betochen until the last moment, and then what happens, nabach, if something happens, how you have to turn into a maimin.
Right.
And that's how he turned too.
What does it mean that
He was a crazy
longer?
believer? What does it mean a lot longer? Look around.
I'm saying, what do you think he meant?
The Rebbe ran the show.
Right.
Who knows what happens now?
Right.
Something else. He doesn't know. He has enough recognition to know that it's just changed. Something changed here.
Right.
Right now, till now, like the Rebbe used to say, there was a time, there was kitzin, tzaddikim around the show, they told you when things are going to happen, and now there's not even mechashvi kitzin. There aren't those people anymore. Why? They actually spoke about it. It's amazing Farbrengen. About a year before Yechab Shenal's Keton, there was another Farbrengen that has to be learned. Some of the most amazing. Why they're so enamored with Mashiach, why Shem Mitzvah Neach. A lot of these things he discussed at that time. And one of the things he said was, times have changed. There was a time that Hanasi were Kael, and therefore it was all about the Nasi, and now we changed to a time where HaKael who are Nasi. Your mishpacha.
What does that mean?
Went crazy when they heard that for bringing. That's how I remember also socially from the concept.
They liked it.
They did not like it. It was, they basically said it's up to everybody now. There's a new language.
You mean that instead of there being everything, everybody's a Rebbe essentially, kind of thing. Where like the Rebbe, it's democratic almost.
Yeah. He literally said it. It was very, and he says, why it says in Rashi, Anasi Okel, Anasi, he discussed it and said, Sefelt in Eskashlis. And he said, because Sefelt in Eskashlis. But, so you could take it as, maybe as a punishment, or B, this is how it's supposed to...
Homesick for Lubavitch is brought to you by Yuvla Media, a boutique video production company servicing the Chabad and Jewish community. Since opening 10 years ago, Yuvla Media has pushed the boundaries of artistic and thoughtful storytelling in the community, with an insistence on there always being a memorable story as well as a beautiful and striking visual image that we believe is second to none. Over the years, we have worked with Chabad organizations around the country, as well as large organizations like Boni Olam, Torah Masora, and Atzalathon, guided by the belief that your story is absolutely worth telling with depth and creativity. If you are looking to tell your story with a video, please reach out to us at hello@yuvlamedia.com. Again, that is hello@yuvlamedia.com. A link can be found in the show notes. And now, back to the podcast. How did you process that whole tkuf of Nun Aleph Nun Beis?
I was...
Where were you? Where were you at that time?
I was in Manhattan. I was living in Manhattan. I was in a different mind space.
You were a little bit checked out.
Yeah.
You were not coming to the Farbrengens on Shabbos.
No, but I remember
Did
once...
you feel like you were missing out on something? Or you were too preoccupied with what you were doing?
I was too preoccupied, but I came in. I remember once coming to Farbrengen, and the Farbrengens then were very, very different.
Yeah.
It was very hard. It was all... They would jump from one thing to another thing. It was very hard. And I remember meeting Yale outside 770, and I go, what's good? I'm like, what just happened?
Right.
What was that? Like, what's going on? So Yale told me two things. First of all, he said, I go home now, and I spend hours to take out one nakuda of the Rebbe. What he said. So I saw this guy is a struggling guy. Like,
even he's struggling.
No, but he's working. He knows why. But then he told me two good stories on how you that you don't know there. The Rebbe is on a different level. It's a different thing. He told me a story about watching. Actually, Shapiro said it recently because he heard it also from Yale. It's a very amazing story. There was a time, there was a window. The windows behind the Rebbe's room, it was windows. Now it's blocked by a building, but you were able to look into the Rebbe's room. So there were some guys that used to spend time looking to see what the Rebbe's up to. Yeah, I think there was a big movement to keep people away, but some people figured out how to be there. I jumped to that. Let me go back. Chadakov once came to Yale to tell him that the Rebbe was not happy with the Chazar. This is what he told me. He told me that Chadakov came to him, told him that he's not happy, that the Rebbe is not so happy with the Chazar. So Yale says, Okay, no problem. What should I fix? Chadkov didn't know what to fix. So he goes, how am I supposed to fix if I don't know? Like, what? I'm in. I'm ready to fix. Like, what to fix? So Yale says to him, the Rebbe was very against, at the beginning of years, the Rebbe didn't want any recordings.
Right.
Because the Rebbe wanted everybody to be present. If there's a recording, you're not present. You know, you can pause it, come back later, you breaks it up, you're there. You know, if you don't remember it, you're not there now, you're never gonna see it again. Right. So that's what. So there was very against it. So he said, but for Chazar it would be amazing. It's an indispensable tool. It would be great. You know, you can have what the Rebbe said, and not only that, I can make Chazar. The Rebbe can listen to the tape, and then if there's something wrong, the Rebbe can listen to the tape, or I can listen to that. It could be looked on, and I can see what happened, and we can see where the mistake happened, and maybe the Rebbe himself wants to hear the Farbrengen himself. So Chadkov said, that's a really good idea. But since the Rebbe is against it, I'm not going to say it in your name. Just in case the Rebbe gets disappointed, I'll say it in my name. When he comes back, the Rebbe agreed to be recorded for that Farbrengen. and the Rebbe was going to listen to the Farbrengen. So he says, I knew that the Rebbe was going to listen to Farbrengen. So he goes, I went to that place. I want to see the Rebbe watch the Farbrengen. He says that he remembers, he says that they put the recording, and they were sat like this. And he didn't move for 3-4 hours.
Listen to the whole recording.
Listen to the whole recording. And then send back a note to Yale. Basically accepting, understanding why Yale said what he said. And he said that by the Shasa Farbrengen, the words I remember there was said to him was, Mitzad Leiv Nevias HaChochma, because of the flow, intellectual flow, I can see why you made those mistakes. So it was like the Rebbe excused him for making that. And he says the next 3 Farbrengens were the clearest Farbrengens he ever remembered. Then went back to the old style. But his point was...
This is when? This is in the last years?
This is in the earliest years. The early years. So he says, this stuff... he's processing... There's a crazy amount of information being processed here.
Right.
You figure out how to get it.
Right.
Don't blame it on the... Speaker, blame it on the listener. Do what you got to do.
I heard a similar story from the son of Hilda Krinsky that the Rebbe once asked, or to show a video of.
And he said, find a shorter one.
No, but I heard that. What I heard was that they were playing the video and somebody stopped it, or someone was talking, and the Rebbe said not to be mouthed. Like the Rebbe took it very seriously. They shouldn't interrupt it.
I just heard the story from them recently. From what you call it from.
Label?
No, from Yudel Krinsky himself.
Okay. I botched the story? It's a tape.
I don't botch. He says that they played, they want to show the Rebbe the tape, and the Rebbe saw the tape, and the Rebbe said next time, if they're going to say, come back, the Rebbe told them, you can, a smaller secha.
I think
because I think there was a big difference. Over there, the Rebbe was listening, watching the production.
No, I understand, but
the Rebbe was talking to Achayze, and he's looking to see.
No, of course.
The Rebbe empowered him crazy to be. By the way, the one of Yale Lamed Ches.
I mean, look, when you think about it, it's very interesting. I mean, maybe this is an obvious point for most people, but you're bringing it up now. Like, that story with Rebbe Yoel talks a lot to the kind of basic idea that a Farbrengen is a Rav and a Talmud.
Right.
And Chassidus talks, as you know, at length. Like, I don't know if there's a mashal brought in Chassidus as often as a mashal of Rav and Talmud on a consistent basis, right? The Rav and Talmud this, Rav and Talmud that. And like the Rav faces a very difficult predicament trying to convey a real chachma that he has to a Talmud. Right, it's a
struggle.
Right, this is a mashal for tzimtzum. This is serious stuff. Serious, right. And what you're talking, the story of like, the Rebbe realizes that there's a disconnect, even with Rebbe Yoel, who's the one person that he's trusted to understand on some level what he's saying. And when he realizes there's a disconnect, they bring him the tape because that is the tool with which the Rebbe can reflect on what he's saying. And he's trying to figure out what's the problem. Where am I not conveying what I want to convey in the clearest way possible? and he spends the seriousness, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a davar pashut, but I think there's a lot of times in the spectacle of the farbrengen and the whole, like, you know, the nigunim and the whole situation. You forget that, like, that was simply trying to convey ideas in a clear way as best as he can.
Right.
And this story points to, you know, there was a challenge that needed to be surmounted. Because there is a challenge.
We were just bringing about this concept on Shabbos that I remember Label Groner saying this story. It's a known story, but I remember Label saying it because he was there at the time. He's talking about Nissen Nemenov. And he was saying how he remembers that when he came to, he put his name, he said he wanted to go in Yechidus, and he asked Label to put him the last Yechidus. He says when it came time to open the door for the people coming in, he was the first person standing on the line. He went to the side, he said to him, and he says, for hours and hours and hours, and finally, you know, he says, finally it came time. He went over to him, he says, it's time to go in. He says, I'm not ready. He says, I'm really not ready. He says, you're going in. He says, darf man gehen on Achonis. And he went in. When he came out, he made a farbrengen. And he was crying by this farbrengen. So he said that he shared with the Rebbe that he's having very big frustration with the fact that he's talking to these Bachrim and he's not connecting. He's just not connecting to them. So, and what should he do? He says the Rebbe told him an amazing thing. The Rebbe says, why don't you do what I do? Because before I say something to the Olam, I imagine if 50% of the Olam can do it. If I don't see 50% doing it, I don't bring it up. So he's crying on how many, God knows how many things he ever wants to do, but he doesn't see 50% return, and he's not going to even bring it up. Just shows you how the Rebbe is very conscious of the crowd that he's talking to, and it's an amazing story. It's an amazing message to everybody, how to communicate. Most people are like, they don't get me.
Too bad on you.
Yeah, too bad on you. Communication means for that person. It's all about that. He's not getting you. That means you're not delivering it correctly.
Yeah, I make videos for a living, and I can tell you that's the first lesson you learn, and it comes at you hard, because you make this whole fancy idea, and then you show it to someone, they're like, I don't get it, and you're like, how could you not get it? How can you not get it? It's there. And they're like, I'm sorry, I don't get it. But like, and in the beginning, you're like, excuse me, you have to get it. And at some point you realize the client's not going to pay you if people don't get it. People they don't care that you want them to get something, right? Yeah.
I should get back to it. I used to write something on a weekly basis or daily sometimes on Chassidus, a shir that I gave. And then, but because I went to Ocean Parkway, my English needs English. It's like you never went to English department.
Right.
So my wife is very good with in English. So I would give it to her to edit. But she doesn't buy any of this BS. It has to be, when you're telling her something, it has to be 1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
Don't tell me 1 + whatever is 2. Well, what's the whatever?
Right.
So she would call me out on what I'm writing. So it became not about the English. It became the fact that I was a mess. And I spoke like a mess. And the message doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So she would end up making me come up with a product that was so much better.
Right.
Because I thought it was her. And I used to get nervous. And I realized, it's true. And
we assume very often, that because I'm talking to a Lubavitcher or because I'm talking to people that love Chassidus, so basically I have leeway to assume that they believe in X, Y, Z, and they have tolerance for this leap of logic and that leap of logic and the third leap of logic. And then eventually it's like, no, that's not how this works. Okay, people, like you have to take people seriously. You have to take people seriously, and that's what's so beautiful about that story with Rebbe and the Chazara. It's a beautiful story. That like the
Rebbe took it upon himself. It's amazing.
Look, the Rebbe is a holy person. Okay, he's a tzaddik, and so we can easily like lose track of the practical need for communication. Like this is something that I think about a lot, and we talk about a lot on the podcast. Like one of my favorite lines in AM Yom, and I think a lot of people love this line, is the uftu, the helike uftu of or the getliche uftu of Chassidus is Rebbe's nicht and the Chassidim sind nicht, right? And it's like, what's the big deal? Just get in a room and talk, and you're not elent anymore. Is that such a uftu, such a getliche uftu? It's like, no, a Rebbe by definition is supposed to be lonely, because he's bein areich from the Chassidim, from the Talmidim,
right?
Or even the Yom Yom is about the regular, even not regular, a Rosh Hashiva, like a person who's in the position of being a Rebbe or a Rav is by definition in a level that's separate from the rest, and so by definition is lonely, and so you can easily end up in a place where the Rav is talking into a chasm, and it's not getting across, it's not getting to the other side of it, and he's talking and no one's listening. It does feel a little bit like that's what was going on in the last years, from what I gather. Like Nalef and Base, like you're seeing Rebbe Yoel couldn't even piece together, could hardly.
Rebbe was completely available.
No, but the Rebbe was talking and nobody understood what he was saying.
That nobody was understood. First of all, I hear you. It's first of all, that goes to the classic question of Tzemach Tzedek, with the Hill Parasha, that he's chazing a maimer, but they don't get it.
Right.
And it goes back to our original subject. Not everything in this relationship is understood.
Yes,
There's a lot of magic.
I agree with that.
Hill Parasha needed to say something where a guy sitting there is like, what is going on? But he's like a holy guy. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm not saying that's what they ever needed to do, but it's done, and they did make a sicha, they did make a mukadik sicha, they did make something out of it. It wasn't for nothing. But the Rebbe completely made himself available in a way that was crazy.
What do you mean? One second. What do you mean by that? Made himself available.
It was around 24. He was giving dollars, this, that. It was never a time that it was as much available as the last years.
Right.
And most people got turned on to Chabad in the last couple of years.
I know. I meant ideas wise. Ideas
wise. So he trusted at that point.
But I think the point that you just made, I actually just spoke about it last night with Velvolipsker. And that will depend on how the episodes are published. I either have already heard that, people listening to this, or will soon hear it. But Velvolipsker, we were talking about that, about the last years, and how, like, one way to, like, wrap up the show almost would be to kind of tie together all the loose ends and make sure that, here's my Torah, here's my legacy, so to speak, here's my intellectual legacy, and it's all figured out, and now you have it. But like you said, foundationally, this relationship or this truth of Chassidus and this truth of a Rebbe is not something that you can ever fully wrap your mind around, and really you shouldn't be able to wrap your mind around most of it. And so in a way, it had to end this way, where the final speech, so to speak, was, this is much bigger than you can ever comprehend.
Two things I could say about that. First of all, I hear you. There have been many times said everything's purpose is to move up. Like the daimim, inanimate objects, supposed to evolve into a tzameach, and a tzameach for food for animals.
Sure.
And that to medaber, and a medaber to ruchni. The Rebbe also in the years went, you see the early years more space, logically and more emotional, more moram and more, and in different years you see how the Rebbe evolved. And in that year it went totally spiritual. There's a very interesting part of Sichis that I don't know why people don't, this is, I believe, maybe the most important Sicha of understanding what Chassidus Chabad is doing, is, I think he's a Kislev, I don't remember which Cheluk, apologize. When the Rebbe asked the question, the Alter Rebbe is in jail, and the Tzemach and the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid appeared to him.
Right.
And he's like, what am I doing here?
Right.
He's like, because you're teaching Chassidus. Okay, so I'll stop. No, you started, continue. So there, and then he went out, and he became more elaborate and normal. So anyways, I don't understand. This conversation happened with Pinchas Karatza, with the stone, the diamond, the kids dying.
Right.
And the whole point, and why the whole point is to get one drop in. You get one drop in.
It's worth it.
It's worth everything. Why are we revisiting this story again?
Right.
Rebbe says something so amazing. He says there's two parts of Chassidus. There's Mechaya Mesim, and that was settled then. But then there's another part. It's the way the future is, the times of Mashiach, how people are going to speak and how we're going to learn when we're not part of this reality, when Okus is more reality than the physical world. And you're going to speak differently, you're going to act differently, and everything's going to be differently. And that's Teras Shel Mashiach. He says the Alter Rebbe started talking like that. He started talking about the next, it wasn't just talking about the part that's being Mechaya Mesim. So it always bothered me, why isn't, like, I used to like the practical.
So finish it off.
Okay, so there's a part of Chassidus that's there to inspire.
People, to save people.
To inspire.
Right.
It's avart, that's avart.
Save people.
Yeah, and there's certain parts of when you're going to terror. It's like you have to be makubal. It's like almost impossible to understand.
And that's what he felt the kitrug was on.
He didn't know that was a kitrug. That's what the kitrug was on. That's what it was.
On Shel Mashiach.
He thought it was just normal to speak like this. And then, like, who gave you permission to talk like that? That's not how we. The only part of Chassidus that we did is to inspire people, to wake people up from Golus. Now you're talking like this is a real thing. I'm being facetious.
I get it.
Whatever.
I get it.
That's what happened there the last years also. Start talking about Mashiach. Everything's Mashiach, everything connected. He's talking about another reality. He's completely in a different reality. No. That's why you find, even in Lubavitch today, most people, I can't talk about for Lubavitch, but a lot of people don't go to this sichas of the nun. It's too hard. It's like,
it's very cryptic. It's not
cryptic.
It's not very satisfying.
Same reason why most people don't go to Quartet. I mean, they do. Like if you're reading Tillim, Shabbos morning,
right.
But they don't really learn it.
I like Quartet. It's not the same.
I know because it's holy.
No, Quartet is nice. You can make sense out of it. You can make it. I think.
Depends which parts.
Yeah, of course. But as a rule, I feel like there's something.
You're very special.
Really?
Yeah. It's very hard. It's very hard. It's very hard.
It's more poetry than, like, let's say a Rebbe Shabbos Maimer.
There you go. You're saying poetry. You're ready. You're ready because you have a sense. You appreciate maybe a more spiritual take, but somebody wants to take away. When you learn a Maimer from Quartet, you have to do a lot of work if you're going to meet somebody who's not religious, and you have to pass him over an idea.
You're not learning a sugya of Kolamin. No.
Yeah.
No, you're not learning a sugya of Chachma and Bina. No.
He's opening up doors that are just. It's
razzle dazzle, and
I find it almost like a mikveh experience. It's completely spiritual. It's very special.
I see.
And but actually, Yale. I didn't hear the story from Yale. I heard somebody else saying Yale's name. These are good. There's like the whole Chassidus is there. Anyways,
Rebbe said that the whole.
I heard that in his name. I didn't know if this. I don't remember who I heard it from exactly. But,
it makes sense.
But there was a time that the Rebbe wanted every bacher to own a sefer. Like own it, meaning you learned it until it's yours, like it's your book. That's your book, and that's what I heard in the early years.
I know the Rebbe told we had on the podcast. The Rebbe told Rabbi Mangel to learn it the whole Torah 5 times each week.
4 times?
5.
He's told you 5?
Or maybe it's 4. I don't know.
Maybe 4. Because he told me the story 2 years ago.
Okay, it's either 4 or 5.
Whatever. It's amazing, and he told me no, but that was unique. I asked him, did they ever tell that to anybody else?
No, but it's the same.
He told me Sholem Morozov.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Sholem Morozov did.
I didn't ask that question.
Did he tell you how they ever told him to learn it?
I don't know.
They ever told him, nicht wie Tillim, aber man darf nicht meinen sein, you don't have to go look up all the places.
It was on the podcast.
Yeah. He told me he killed him. He was up all night.
Yes.
Yeah, because everyone was breaking him. And he came with the conditions. He told you about the conditions.
Yeah, with Rabbi Kramer.
Yeah. So he, and then they send him to the Rebbe.
No, he had a fantastic story. I'm referencing now another podcast, but he had a fantastic story where he had a literature kid that he brought from Lakewood or something to 770, and the Rebbe gave him a Yirah in Yechidus because he went after the Bacher, gave him a Yirah. Keep him in 770 for another night, bring him to Fabringen with Chassidim, and make sure he gets elbowed.
Wow.
You have to break him in.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Right?
It's incredible. Because let me tell you, the pushing was a very intense time. You should know it's very hard. It was very difficult. But
this wasn't even by the Rebbe's Fabringen. This was by Chassidim Fabringen.
Oh.
You're talking about the Ravs.
Oh, you're talking about by a regular Rebbe.
Yeah, make sure somebody elbows him.
Wow. Wow. Someone told me a similar story also. But anyways, going back to the Rebbe, he opened up another door. That's why people are, even full-fledged Chassidus learning, Maver said that the Rebbe's stairs, everything, they don't go to those years because the Rebbe's opened up a new book over there.
So what do you think it is? People are scared? People are scared to find out what's on the other side of it?
Everybody's comfortable. One of if you had to say one thing the Rebbe fought more than anything else was one's comfort factor. The number one thing he did, teva, which is teva. Like everybody, everything you do is you look to make it normal and
right. Well, they say
take it to his, everything in the physical world. One thing I do remember from science class is that everything goes to its equilibrium.
Yeah.
There's a pressure here, and then there's
nothing easier than pushing an environment mikveh.
There you go. and that's the place that they ever found as the enemy of everything. Whatever you're doing, with any part of your life, that's the enemy. So he always was a pusher, and he was like, "Why are you pushing? He's pushing because he's doing you a favor, because it doesn't hilei sitzlach. That equilibrium doesn't actually stay there."
All right, so I want to move the conversation a little bit to something that you alluded to, and I imagine that you probably don't want to go too personal with it, but you did allude to it earlier that you had your own journey. In and out to some extent, or out and in. And I'm not trying to pry into your own life, but I wonder what you make of, and we've touched on it a few times, but I know it's something that you've been involved with. What do you make of how does a community, or how do people think of what it means to be a Lubavitcher when there's so much chaos, or like it's not as static as it used to be, where people are in, people are out, people are exploring, people are changing, I'm a Lubavitcher and I look this way, I'm a Lubavitcher and I look that way, I'm a Lubavitcher and think this way, I'm a Lubavitcher that thinks that way. How do you think of, there are a lot of people, let me put it this way, a lot of people who they see the only way forward is if everyone kind of gets on the same page. That's the only way to save, or to to keep things very systematize things. And it seems to me like that's not possible for many people. How do you see the future of Lubavitchers? I know that sounds a little bit pretentious, but how do you see things panning out with so people kind of spinning off in so many directions?
It's the same thing we said before. It's the human experience. At the end of the day, the Rebbe many times say the Alter Rebbe didn't want him afraid of Latzma. He didn't want this Lubavitch by itself, and then there's everybody else, and we got above over there and care and a good. It's so real. It's Judaism. A person anywhere should feel it.
Right.
It's like I have a friend of mine in the 5 towns. He's a Breslover. He learns Chassidus. He's so much a better Breslover because he's learning Chassidus. He comes back to me and tells me, what Nachman said over here, and I'm listening to him. He's not talking Breslov. He's talking Chabad. He's just seeing it in Breslov. Fine. It's true everywhere. It's real MS. It doesn't have a framework. You're trying to people that you're saying is like they're trying to keep something. What's something? What's that something? That something, whatever you're doing, is way different. Whatever they're imagining it wasn't like that in Latvatsk. It wasn't like that in Varsha.
That's true.
And it wasn't that in Rostov. And it wasn't that in Ladi. It's never like that.
But if you were running a yeshiva, I mean, let's steel man that side a little bit. I think it's easy to kind of, like you say, question it. I question it too. But if you're like, there is a purpose of a group identity. It's not like it's not just a crutch. There is something about you have a family. A family is a group identity. We're all part of this family. No, we're all human beings. No, we're human beings, but we also were related to each other, and we have a certain feeling for each other and a certain responsibility. And community is the same thing. So I don't think it's completely like useless. And
no, you're right. I was talking. See, I'm coming from you're right. I'm coming from somebody who lived in most of my years, was always not in the Lubavitch community. And most of the people I know, not Lubavitchers. So I'm very, I look at it a little different, but that's true. But my kids, I send them dafke Lubavitch, dafke this, dafke that, and 100%. But if they choose whatever they choose, they choose. If they choose, they have a right to. But I do, yes, you do need to have a framework. So what's the problem? It's doing very well.
It's doing well in absolute numbers, I think. But I think look, I don't want to be just the negative guy looking for problems. But I think if you look, you can see that there are issues. There are fundamental issues. I have a lot of friends who work in the yeshivas, and if you speak, I have spoken to them, and to me the most fundamental issue that I can sense is that people feel that there are some questions that need to be asked, but if they are asked, there aren't ready answers for those questions. And in a way, if you ask those questions, all bets are off. Right? So we don't ask those questions. And so to me, that comes from a place of fear or a place of caution, to put it nicely. And I believe that it could be that reason. Caution of like, we don't break this thing that we have here. And if that means, if to not break it means avoiding some uncomfortable questions, let's avoid it. You know what I'm saying? Do I have to be more specific?
No, I hear you.
I mean, for example, what does it mean to be a Lubavitcher Bacher in 2025 as opposed to 1985? Do we forbring the whole day about what happened in the MEMS, or do we forbring about today? The people in these shivas, and that's a very kind of basic, almost caricature of the question, but people in these shivas, they don't really, at least people I speak to, they don't really know the answer. Because what do we mean? The shiva is going to become modern and become disconnected from the past?
So now you're bringing in my critical side. So I was always the critical guy and always questioning.
That's what I'm here for.
And I found mostly the problem is actually the personalities,
right?
Not the philosophy, the personalities, and emes, and being truthful, and not just regurgitating something you heard from somebody else, and saying it over and over and over and over again. It's tedious. It's
you don't think the two things are connected? Isn't the lack of?
I think there needs to be better. I don't think anybody. This is not being learned. It's being read. It's not being learned. I speak to people all day long about Tanya, different things in Al Tirba. I'm like, what does Al Tirba mean here? What's he saying here? I'm like, the thing. I remember in yeshivas, the thing is Gumayla. That Gumayla, it's higher than that.
Right.
Higher than what? What? What's this? What's that? What's going on? Let's just say you don't know.
Right. My grandfather always told me this story so many times. A lot of people have heard it from him. That like one of his first memories of coming to 770 as grew up in England or France and then England, and then he comes to 770 as a young teenager. And this is 770, right? It's in the Rebbe's Dal Damas. This is Zal Yeshiva. This is Tenchet Mimim, right? I think that was before the Rebbe took his name off it. The famous story. But this is Tenchet Mimim. This is it. And he walks into the Zal of upstairs 770, and there's two Bachrim learning there. One of them's I don't know if one of them's about Tshuva or certainly very American. And he hears one of them go, "What the hell is a tzimtzum?"
It's a great question.
Right?
That's real. That's what I'm talking about.
That's real.
That's what I'm talking about.
And what I feel is what I feel like is that question was asked, then ignored.
Right.
And maybe now people are beginning to address it. Like you have to be able to answer as a community that makes these ideas central to who we are. We have to be able to accept and tolerate that kind of question of what the hell is a tzimtzum?
Right.
Like don't just tell me as a state.
Right.
Kabbal's a emes and just move along. No, that's a question. People are very direct. They have direct questions, and you have to respect those questions with answers that are equally as direct.
Also, you remind me on a negative, so to speak, on Yale. I can't say negative, but because I love the guy and I still do. But I remember once coming over to him, and this is like such a ridiculous conversation. I'm still shocked of it. I'm already an older guy. in 770 or whatever time, I go to you. What is his bonus? Tell me what you think his bonus is. No. It's not a word in the Maime. He started going into his whatever, Maime. Like he was bothering me. He was bothered by the fact I was learning a lot of the Fiddik Rebbe's memoir at the time because it was talking to me.
Right.
And he's like, what do you... And then years later, I used to tell him my mashal, like I give him a marshal. I said, let's say this marshal, what do you think? Was darf das da? Like, what do you need that? Like this, I said, did you watch TV? You watch movies? I go, we got different Nefesh Habehamis. Your Nefesh Habehamis, we got stuff. I go, my Nefesh Habehamis.
You told him this?
Yeah. I told him, I have a different Nefesh Habehamis. I got to talk to a different guy. So I'm asking him I used to ask him the question just to make sure if this is Chassidus or this is my own
self-help.
I remember once asking him, it was in Preger Tess. I love, this is a very important story for me personally because I remember I had a way of how everybody's learning the Tanya, that part, and now it doesn't make sense to me, and I think that we should learn it this way.
Right.
So I remember coming to him and telling him this. He goes, it's a shame of art, it's nicht Tanya. So
that's good. Yeah.
So that's a great. So first of all, I knew it's kosher. Okay, fine. So
and he wasn't disagreeing with the logic of it.
No, and it's Chabad, right? You didn't disagree with the Chabad part. It was just that's not what the Rebbe is saying here.
Yeah, don't blame it on Tanya.
So then I went to him. I said, and I continued the conversation. Listen, I give Shir and Tanya, and I'm going to teach it this way. Do you have a problem with that? Would you have a problem with that? So he told me a story, and again, he says, no, it's fine. Like, it's okay. Whatever the story, it's a good story in its own right. Right, all right. But we're talking about this. Chassidus needs to be personalized. Now, we learn the stories of Chassidim being mizbeinin, thinking that they're going to Shemayim. That, well, if they were, then that doesn't make sense from the way the Fiddik Rebbe describes it and whatever. His bonus means contemplation is how do you ground it? How do you personalize it? How do you make it your... There's a famous story of the Tzemach Tzedek's son. This is a very great story. That one time, when he got married, his son is Yosef Yitzchak, the one who the Fiddik Rebbe was named after. Son of Tzemach Tzedek, he married, I forgot who, some Rebbe's, not Chabad, whatever. And it was Sheva Brachas Shabbos. So they wanted to know, like, technically, when do we start Sheva Brachas? So they knew Chabad, they davened for a long time. So he went over to him. He asked his son-in-law, how do you what's your system on Shabbos? He goes, ich daven mit der Tzibur. So he goes, oh, daven with the Tzibur, no problem. So they made up right after Shabbos, and they sit down. After they sit down, where's Yosef Yitzchak? He's davening 1 hour, 2 hours, like 3 hours later, he comes back, and his new father-in-law was like, I don't understand. I asked you, you said Tzibur. You're davening with the minyan. Yeah. So he says, sorry. He goes, by me, he says, my father explained that Tzibur means when you take your Esa Keches HaNefesh and you bring him together as a Tzibur, as one, and you're focused. Right. That's how you daven. He goes, that takes time. That takes time. So he personalized it. Chassidus has to become personal. Like the Alter Rebbe says, you have to be mechadish in Chassidus. You have to be mechadish. Mechadish means it's something you not saying over somebody else's thing. Something you take.
Here's a problem with that, though. Something that we discussed on the phone a few days ago is that to make it personal about this podcast, for example, something that I've run into is that it is very, very hard for me to get people on this podcast who are part of the quote unquote system. The yeshivas, whoever it is, I've asked plenty of them, and there's a certain kind of hesitation, cautiousness about getting involved in something that's less sanctioned and looser. Let's say there's no rabbinical committee and approving who does come on, who doesn't come on, what people say, what people don't say, and so on. Maybe they don't approve of me. I don't know. And so we were discussing it, and you're like, look, at some point, if you are acceptable to the most cautious members of the community, then you're actually not doing something. You're not really doing anything, which I thought was very very apt. But the problem is that when you talk about scale, and everybody's personalizing it in their own way, then what are you part of? How do you see? You seem to be very optimistic or hopeful, positive about where things are going. Everyone's falling off the deck. No, things are better than they used to be. There's a lot of good that you see. I think that's very nice. I respect that. But I think you also recognize that a lot of people are kind of off doing their own things or just exploring in their own way. And you do see that does create a tension between the personal and the communal. So how do you see that being resolved? How have you navigated? How have you navigated that?
I've seen I see that's exactly why we're still here. That's the reason why the Lubavitch held together. The so-called together is because we didn't conform to one place. Because, like it says in Golos, this one I sent to Borovia, this one I sent here. He said, there's right now whole communities in Russia and in Argentina, Lubavitchers, that have no idea what's going on in Crown Heights. They've never seen Crown Heights. They've heard it. They have nothing to do with it. In Russia, they have nothing to do with any of the people that we know. They're completely on their own. It's only...
you're talking about the Ma'amar Chazal Tzedakah Shapizim Ben Omer.
He made it open. They ever left it open for everybody. Now, obviously, at the end of the day, you need checks and balances.
Right.
So the checks and balances is halacha.
Right.
Or meaning Chabad. Okay, that's true. It's hard to answer what exactly that is.
And sometimes the checks and balances is someone who's more cautious telling you you're going too far, even if it's not halacha.
Personally, I always, when I feel about something that I didn't hear from anybody, I would always call somebody that I know that's somebody. I used to at Yale or somebody else. I would ask.
Like the story you just said about Tanya.
Yeah. I'm going to say, what do you think? You think it's still, I'm going to teach it this way, but I know that I was definitely not taught this way. And my mashpia would not like this, but you think it's still Chabad.
Were you asking someone who's more cautious and conservative than you specifically? Or
somebody usually much more sensitive to spiritual, much more closer to, like, wait.
But is cautious a barometer? That's my question.
The way the Rebbe dealt with all these issues. If you read how the Rebbe says about Mener, anybody can light the fire.
Right.
But the kohen you need to know how to put in the oil, how to put in what to measure, how to set it up. Afterwards, what you can do with your fire, you go a fire. But you have to have a certain framework that it's there. Then your fire, it's going to be unique because the ones on this one's going to the left and these are going to the right. Left and right don't see each other. But if there was a kohen that saw that put it together, so to speak. So I do I would usually try to find a kohen to ask him if this is.
By kohen, you mean someone who's living that life?
Some more spirit, yeah.
Like surrounded by
more
yeshiva, like more protected from the world.
Right.
Interesting.
You have to do that. That's why they say Harav. That's one of the Rebbe's thing about the say Harav. You got to connect. You got to be your own man. And I don't like these people who want to box everyone. It doesn't work. There's no such thing. There's no such animal. It never worked. It never will work.
Right.
It's counter. It's against human nature. Right. Everybody is a unique. Nobody has the same thoughts in the same Shabbos.
Right.
So now you say you want to have everybody in the same thing. We're inherent, but in Ein Day in same Shabbos, it's which direction. Like the end, we're going to one direction, but everybody's doing. One guy's going that way.
Right.
That's okay. You tell. So now Yale told me then when I said that story that he said I asked him if I can teach it anyways. So he told me a beautiful story. He told me that when the Rebbe Shab established Temchet Mimim, he asked Mechila from Seder Shtalshulos. You know the story?
No.
He asked Mechila from Seder Shtalshulos, apologizing that if the Bachram are going to learn Seder Chassidus, and they're going to mess it up.
Right.
They're going to go this target,
What the hell is Seder Shtalshulos?
Whatever, no, they're going to just mess up all the levels.
Yeah.
And they're going to just, whatever, just what happens.
Yeah.
Don't take it to heart. Like, don't get personal. Don't. It's okay. Like, whatever. So Yale's laughing, and he tells me, if with that thing from there about Shab, you can't scan. Like, you can go. That's what he told me. Years later, I thought about that story, And like always, that's my point, is you have to personalize things. I'm thinking the story doesn't make any sense. Because their Bashab is asking the Seder Shalom shouldn't take it personal. Well, is it personal or is it not personal? If the boys are learning and what they're saying has value, then if they make a mistake, it's a problem. What do you mean? It's okay. Well, it's okay. You lost. It's a problem. Right. And if it's not a problem, whatever they're saying has no meaning, anyways. Then you don't have to apologize. It doesn't mean anything. So which one is it?
Right.
So I'm thinking that I wish I was able to talk to Yale, ask him about this, but I think this is what the story is meaning. Kabbalah is all about the spiritual realm. You mess up there, it has a ramification, has a difference on the neshama, on the person.
If you're meyachid yichudim in the wrong way.
If you learn it wrong, you see it wrong, you can't learn it two people at the same time, you got to be careful, because you can mess up there. But all of a sudden when it comes to chassidus, no problem. My belief, like he says, my belief is that chassidus is embedded like with a GPS to Ein Eid Movadei. Kabbalah is ruchni, but not hard coded like that. So if you go off, it's like using a road map. Once the map's wrong, you're off. You're gone. You're in the water. You're here. You're in Gaza. I don't know where you went. You went to the wrong place. You're done.
Right.
But Chassidus Chabad is almost hard coded, and I definitely can feel it at this point of the learning over there. That no matter how you mess it up, you're still coming to the same place. Yeah, you might have to go around the Union, you go around traffic, you have to go that way, you go 3 times. The destination is never lost.
Beautiful.
And that's what I meant. I don't mind what you're going. You're teaching Chassidus, you're going to Tanya, you'll get back on. You're going off this way. I'll pick you up in the next parak.
Yeah.
We'll find you.
Yeah, there's a beautiful. I remember reading it once. I'm not some bucky in the Fidik Rebbe Sichos. I wish I was, like the stories. But I do remember reading this, and I couldn't find it afterwards. Maybe someone listening to this can tell me where. But I just remember the idea that the Fidik Rebbe was talking about how the Baal Shem Tov had patience, and he was describing how different Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov, it took years. There was the Baal Shem Tov was very tactical, even strategic, of like letting, softly and slowly dropping hints and dropping connections to these big Talmidei Chachamim, and eventually they came. It wasn't aggressive about it, because I have the truth. Time's on my side. Right? When you're a businessman, someone is rolling a con on you when they need an answer this minute, right? If it's a good deal, you're not so aggressive about it, right? And I feel like
it's interesting. You're making me realize now what it says. The Baal Shem Tov never moved, would go, and the Maggid would not move. He would not. It was the opposite.
The Baal Shem Tov would move.
The Baal Shem Tov would move around.
Right.
He would go to people.
I think it was about the Shem Tov in the Sikha. Maybe it's a Maggid.
Interesting.
I think it was whatever.
It's a very good point.
But the idea was that either the Baal Shem Tov or the Maggid. I remember being the Baal Shem Tov. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's a Maggid.
I don't know.
But the point was the patience,
right.
And that's something. It struck me. I had a conversation with someone else here in Florida for the podcast, and he's a fellow who was in Bedford and Dean. For 10 years. He came from Washington, D.C., stayed in the dorm, he didn't know what Yom Kippur was. Comes to Bedford and Dean, spends 10 years in the school, and then 2 years in Hadar Torah upstairs 770. He's mamash in the thick of it. Went for Chiddush every year for his birthday, but he felt a fondness and an appreciation for Lubavitch and the Rebbe for what they did for him, and they brought him to Yiddishkeit. He's a Frum Yid to this day, but he never became Lubavitcher, never thought about becoming a Lubavitcher. And we're having this conversation, and he's like, I don't even know what you want from me. Like, I don't have any big zechreinis to tell you. I don't have any big, memories But as we're pushing and, talking and kind of... Because he hasn't spoken about it for, 60 years. Because he moved on with his life, and he didn't keep in touch. He didn't come back for dollars. And as we're talking, he's like, you know what? When I look back at that part of my life, I realize now that I think about it, that it was the most important part of my life, and I was lucky to have been there.
Wow.
And I realized that's the idea of patience. Like, this guy, this is how he's processing it. He pulls out for me after that. He says, look, I need to show you something. He pulls out a siddur, Atilas Hashem. He's like, the cover's new. I just got it recovered because the cover's falling off. He starts opening up. The pages are all worn out. Taken care of meticulously. Like, the book is still, but they're worn out. He's like, this is a book I got my first day of Bedford and Dean 70 years ago. Tilas Hashem. I've been davening out of it every day since.
Wow. Yeah.
That's patience. That's patience. It'll come. Like, you know.
I would say, go back to our first point. It's real.
Yes.
And therefore, you're using the word patience, but it's real, and therefore, it never lets you go. It's there.
It never lets you go. It never lets you go. We don't have to have everything organized this moment.
And not everybody is supposed to be the same Chabad guys. And not everybody's supposed to bring every single Yom the Preger of every birthday and whatever. It's everybody find what works. There's a guy here. I was very moved by this. It's a younger man here. And he tells me, the guy tells me that he was losing his, there was something in Tanya. I mentioned something. I saw a unique concept in Tanya, and it was about Chatas Nurin. And I remember this guy just, I don't want to talk. Whatever. I don't want to hear about it. I go, it was today's time. He goes, I don't care. So I'm like, what is that? How does that work? He says, I was losing my religion, and I went to California, and I met Schwartzy. I don't remember who it was.
Right.
I think it was Schwartzy. And he was talking to him. And he told him, why don't you just do the things that you like? Don't do anything you don't want to do. Just do the things that you like. That's it. Because that's what I've been doing. And it works for me. And I'm watching the guy. I'm like, I have a new respect for you.
He does the things of Yiddishkeit that he likes.
Yeah. I go, you come, he davens every day, he's this, he learns, he's a great guy. I go, you obviously, you love all this stuff. I go, there's so much stuff that I'm doing just because you got to do it.
Right.
He goes, no, I don't do anything I don't want to do. I only do things I want to do. And he's a good boy today. And he's a younger man, he's a married guy, maybe a Zayder already. And it's very good advice.
Right.
It's very good advice. Do what you want. That's how they're out there, but wanted things. Focus on the good stuff. Whatever the bad, whatever. Let it. It'll take care of itself. It's from the light, from positive. Everything changes. If everybody finds themselves and they're comfortable and they're learning Chassidus individually, then as a group, it changes the whole place. In the way you talk to people, everybody, there's a line in the Gemara, Lav achber ganev, chor ganev. It's not the mouse that steals. Because it has a place to go to.
Right.
If your friends come to you and you're not that kind of guy anymore, they can't come, they don't talk to you about that. They talk to you about something else. So you make them change also. Everybody by changing makes everybody else change.
Yes.
And to think of it how we're going to do it as a whole, no. The whole is the sum of the parts.
Correct.
It's all about the parts. We have to be a good part.
Right. I mean, that's how explosions are done also, right? Is you trigger something on a very microscopic level, but the chain reaction is what sets things off.
Exponentially.
Yes, is what sets things off. When you empower people and you trust people and you let them, and you can find all kinds of power inside the people that from the top is impossible to find.
That's where you found, I just heard that from the Rebbe, or someone saying about the Rebbe. His demand was, from asking people, change one person, like change one, done.
Right.
Everybody thinks the Rebbe wanted everybody to build big buildings and build crazy institutions. If it happened, if you need it, then you need it, then you built it.
Right.
But the point is, you're going for one step at a time. It spirals. It spirals into more stuff.
Wonderful. So I hope this podcast is part of that, and your conversation and the ideas you shared will I'm sure they will touch other people and inspire other people. And I've enjoyed this immensely. We'll see where that goes and what that chain reaction results in. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming here.
It's been a pleasure meeting you, and Kosher Velchem Pesach.
And keep up doing what you're doing. And If everybody wants to go on, then you did something wrong.
Yes,
you know the famous line, if all think alike, no one thinks much.
Yes, that's good. It's all good. I'm here with you as a result.
You've been validated.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's your smicha.
Thank you. The music for this podcast comes from the album Repentance Doors by Oren Tzor and Nadav Bachar and is used with their permission.